Right now on this Monday morning, it is a beautiful start here in Seattle. The Seattle International Film Festival just wrapped up one of the final films. This one you see right here, this is called The Farewell. It stars actress Awkwafina as a Chinese-born, U.S.-raised woman who travels to China after learning her grandmother has just weeks to live, and her family has decided not to tell her grandmother. I think this premise is so interesting here. So this morning, I'm joined by Lulu Wang, who wrote and directed the movie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And congrats on the movie, by the way, because I know Rotten Tomatoes is it's like 100%. The critics love it, the users love it. That's got to feel pretty good.
Yeah, because I made a very specific film about my crazy family, not knowing if people were going to get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, certainly if people can relate to it, that's great.
You know, I like how you said it's very specific to your family, because I was kind of just like sifting through the social media hive mind, and I found so many people saying, I had the same exact experience in my family.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, maybe that's more common than we think.
Yeah, that's been sort of a crazy journey and discovery for me, because when it happened, I was in China with my family, and I felt like I was the lone Westerner in this family who said this is crazy and this is wrong, and I really thought it was just my family. And then I started to learn, okay, maybe it's pretty common in China, maybe it's common in Asia, and now that I've been traveling with the film, I'm learning, you know, people from the UK said we did this, and people from South America and the Middle East, and it really is wild how common the practice is.
I guess when I'm watching this movie, so this, as you mentioned, this is a true story. This is something that you and your family went through. What was that like for you? And also, what was it like to write this and then watch your kind of life play out on the screen? I've never, what is that like to experience?
Well, I think it's really therapeutic, because during, while it was happening, I kept saying to my family, I think this is crazy. Can somebody please listen to me? And they were just like, shut up. Nobody wants to hear you, you know? And then it's sort of, yeah, it just is great that I've been able to actually now explore my thoughts and have audiences understand where I come from, and it's sort of a haha moment to my family, I guess, where I go, you guys wouldn't listen to me, and now maybe the world is listening.
Yeah, the world is definitely listening, especially if you're interested in checking out the film, you absolutely need to, and just go on YouTube and watch the trailer. I was telling you, I was ugly crying watching the trailer. It's so moving. And also what I thought was so interesting is Awkwafina is you, kind of in the movie. A version of you.
Yeah.
And we've seen her in so many movies, but we've seen her kind of in comedic roles, and I love her because I think she commands the screen when she's on it. So what has this been like to kind of see her in this different light?
You know, it's really exciting to take an actress that everybody knows as having done one thing and have them do something completely different. And I think that what's so great about Awkwafina is that when it's sort of like when you have the comedian in the family, the person who's always making everybody else laugh and who's always really strong and puts up this front, when that person breaks down, it's even more poignant and even more emotional, because they're usually the one that's keeping it together. And I think that's what Awkwafina does for the culture through this film, where you really get to see this vulnerable side of her.
And you also mentioned the culture here. You know, the movie's mostly spoken in Chinese. And talk a little bit about this representation, because we're getting new stories in Hollywood, and it's so refreshing to see these new stories, to see representation, that kind of stuff. It matters.
Yes, absolutely. You know, when I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of representation, both in front of the camera and behind the camera, and it was really scary for my parents, knowing that I wanted to be a filmmaker, to have any insight on how that was going to happen. And I'm really grateful for Ang Lee, because he was the one person that my parents knew, and so for them, it was the one bit of light into an otherwise completely foreign industry. And so because, when Ang Lee won the Oscars and he thanked his wife and all of that, they knew that somebody that came from our background had actually made it. And they said, and they knew his journey, his story, that he didn't make his first film till he was in his 30s. And so for my mother, that was really reassuring, because she said, well, you know what, it's okay. Even during your darkest moment, just know Ang Lee did it, and if he can do it, you can too. And so I think about that often when I'm out here presenting my film, that hopefully other, filmmakers, potential filmmakers, artists of any kind, if their families see, oh, this woman looks like my daughter, and if she can do it, then maybe my child can too.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was actually going to ask you about that. I mean, do you see yourself sort of as a pioneer? I mean, you're opening, maybe you're opening doors for people, like you mentioned, watching and saying, hey, that could be me someday. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I hate to think of, I don't think I set out to be a pioneer of any kind, and in many ways it's kind of sad
Right.
that, in 2019 there are so few of us, and I just hope that it opens the door to many, many more.
And I think it will be, absolutely, especially when people see this film. It looks so moving. I can't wait to watch the entire thing. It's called The Farewell. You have to check it out. It's going to be in theaters July 12th. Lulu Wang, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's really good to meet you.
You too.
And
Thank you.
Congrats again on the movie.
Thank you.
All right, so still ahead, we have